All right, welcome back to the Elias Macko Show, third hour of the program. We're going to start off with an absolutely intriguing story from the Canadian business world. A corporate embezzlement story that involves none other than Molson Coors. The brewing giant claims former managers' employees conspired with outside firms to funnel fake invoices and kickbacks, draining about $9 million from Canadian operations. How did this go down? What does the lawsuit documents allege? Let's find out. Let's go to Susan Krashinsky Robertson, the wonderful business reporter over at the Globe and Mail. Susan, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about this lawsuit filed in Ontario court. What is Molson Coors alleging happened here?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, they're alleging an embezzlement scheme with these losses really totaling millions of dollars, and that's just what they know for now. They believe that as they continue to look into this, the losses may have been even higher. So this is just sort of what they've discovered at this point. It's important to say before we get started, of course, that none of these allegations have been proven, and that this is still yet to go before the courts. So these are exactly that. These are allegations. But Molson Coors really went forward with a pretty stunning set of details in the documents that they filed recently in Ontario court. And they're accusing a couple of their own former senior staffers of orchestrating this scheme, saying that their former national director of sales was running the thing in conjunction with another senior employee and some outside firms, including executives from the Firkin group of pubs, which are a client and business partner of Molson Coors. So quite a complex allegation. And the heart of it is essentially creating allegedly these fake invoices. So acting like you're billing the company for services in order to have Molson pay out money to these shell companies, essentially, which then directed kickbacks to the people involved in the scheme, allegedly.
So, how many years are we talking to? What about timelines here? And again, this may be the tip of the iceberg here. How do you get to $9 million of money here?
Yeah, this was going on, according to Molson, since at least 2021. So a few years worth of this scheme before it was discovered. And it was only discovered because of scans of the employee's work email, where some suspicious messages came through that caused them to look into this. This is a very common practice for companies to keep an eye on corporate emails, and what ended up tipping off the company that there might be something going on was, according to them, emails to the sales director's corporate email address from his bank, asking about sort of an unusually large deposit, and asking what was the source of this money. Banks do this. These are what are known as AML, or anti-money laundering measures. They're quite common that if your bank notices some unusual activity, they may reach out just to check in on the source of funds, because, of course, banks are responsible, as we all know from the TD scandal not that long ago. Banks are responsible for making sure that they are taking measures to combat money laundering through their organizations. We don't know for sure that this was an AML measure, but it sounds very much like it was something like that, where the bank reached out and said, "Hey, where did this money come from?" And that was enough to sort of tip off the company that they should start looking into things. And they allegedly found more evidence of this scheme that was ongoing.
Can I ask you, stories like this, like how common is a story like this from a Canadian business leader? In this case, it's a brewing giant. But do you recall other embezzlement stories like this through the years?
Well, certainly I've covered other scandals about things like, misuse of corporate resources or violations of corporate ethics. But no, for sure, this is quite unusual. And certainly the scope of it is really stunning if it's true. We're talking about, a scheme that went on for years that involved basically just fake bills to the company. And that's essentially what fraud is, right? Is you're creating what is supposed to be a legitimate invoice in order to essentially leach money out of what should be a legitimate corporate account. And so, yes, this is a very unusual thing to see, and particularly to see come out at this scale.
In any of the court documents that you've analyzed, the legal documents that you've analyzed, anything to suggest that they came close to getting away with it?
Well, certainly had they kept, and again, we have not proven that they've done this. Mm-hmm. So we're taking what's in the Molson Coors statement of claim right now as the information. We should mention the president of the Firkin Group and his wife, who are named as defendants in this lawsuit, have signaled that they deny all the allegations and intend to defend themselves in court. And the other defendants have not yet responded to our attempts to reach them for comment. But again, assuming this is true, the account that Molson Coors provides of this suggests that they could have gotten away with this for quite a bit longer. As I say, they were only tipped off because of these unusual messages. And then when they began investigating, according to the court documents, they discovered things like spreadsheets that were kept, again, on corporate devices. They don't have the power to go to this person and say, hand us your personal laptop, right? Had this been kept off the company's systems entirely, there's a good chance that this never would have been discovered. And so, it really shows the importance of, in some ways, monitoring that kind of employee activity. But allegedly, there was basically some use of corporate resources, i.e. email and, spreadsheets on a corporate device that were able to sort of tip off the company and kick off this larger investigation that they conducted.
Embezzlement schemes aside, how is Molson Coors doing of late?
Yeah, beer companies have been struggling with changing times, but they've been doing relatively well. This is an interesting time to be in that business. People's habits and drinking habits are changing quite a lot, and so you see companies like Molson Coors really trying to keep up with that, doing things like launching non-alcoholic options, trying to basically keep up with things like declining beer drinking. And, it's a very interesting time, a very difficult time. And it's been a bit mixed for these companies. On the positive side, Molson Coors has seen really strong performances from brands like Peroni, if you know that beer.
Yes.
But there are also significant challenges. There are declines in some of their key performance metrics. And, that's something that they have to look at in the long term. And so, companies like Molson Coors are really, as I said, trying to keep up with consumer habits that are really changing very fast. I don't know if you know any people in your life who've been cutting down on the amount of drinking that they do, but it's a pretty big trend.
Oh, yeah. So, my hand is up. So I don't know about you, but my hand is up. Like I've cut down on,
too.
So.
Yeah. And so, they really have to adapt to these challenges and position themselves for future growth.
More often than not now, when I have a beer, it's a non-alcoholic beer. That's just how it is, right? And it's brands that people know, like there's the non-alcoholic Corona and Heineken and all of these brands, right? So
absolutely, and they've gotten so much better than they used to be. Near beer on the grocery store shelf used to be a bit of a joke, but the technology in brewing and creating non-alcoholic beers has improved so much that you can actually get some products that are genuinely delicious. And that's also helping with it, right? And so these trends are really accelerating.
Susan, I love how you put that. Near beer. I've never heard that before. I love it. I'm going to start using that now. Near beer. Susan, you're wonderful. Thanks for coming on this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Susan Krashinsky Robertson is a business reporter over at the Globe and Mail.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years. And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.